welcome to book club. Grab yourself a little cup of tea or a glass of wine, whatever you're into. I've got mine. Hold on, just going to put it down on my new coaster. Just got it from the charity shop. Do you love it? Got 6 for £1. Brilliant. So today's book is called Letting Go as Children Grow. It's by Deborah Jackson, who is most famous for her book 3 in a Bed, which is kind of the Bible for co-sleeping. If you've ever wondered about whether or not you should co-sleep with your child, 3 in a Bed is the go-to. It kind of dismantles any evidence that it's dangerous, and it speaks about all the history of sharing beds with babies and how globally unnormal it is to put your baby in another room. Anyway, it's a great book, and I'm not doing that book for book club. I'm doing this book for book club, which is her second book. Deborah Jackson, that's her name. Letting Go as Children Grow. And I take note that this is an updated version of a book that she wrote called Do Not Disturb. So it's the same book, but I guess they added a little bit of something else, and they changed the title. And do you know what? I think they did that for a reason, because Do Not Disturb and also Letting Go as Children Grow are rubbish titles. I'm sorry, Deborah, but they don't even cover what is in this book. And you would see this book and you'd pass it by because you just think, what on earth? What's that about? You don't know. But I've been trying to think of a better title because I would actually send her an email. I probably would if I thought of a better title for this book. I probably would send her an email and say, I think you should call it this instead. But I can't think of one because it's a really hard book to describe. It does exactly do that. From early intimacy to full independence. It takes you from newborn days, basically right up to adolescence. And this book kind of gives you a really healthy perspective on your child. It was, for me, probably the first book that opened my eyes to this idea that it's not our role as parents to control our children. It was probably this book that did that for me. So it was huge. It was like scales coming off my eyes. It was enormous, the impact it had on my parenting. I had thought, I'm the mother. I need to do all these things with my baby. I need to keep them safe and connected and attached. But I also need to be completely in charge of them never, ever hurting themselves and never touching anything they're not meant to. And I probably need to influence them to make sure that they go to a good university eventually. And I probably need to bring them up to be feminists and lovers of fair trade. And I need to do all this stuff. And that was honestly my idea about parenting. And this book was the one that said, you know what? Your children are individuals. They're born into this world. You are their guide. But you do not have to control them. In fact, you should not control your children. Don't try and control your children. So that's quite a hard title to come up with. How on earth do you come up with a title? So you've probably never heard of this book, even though it's brilliant. And I think every parent should read it. You know, like there's lots of books on attachment parenting, but quite often they end at a year old or something, right at that moment where your kid really makes it clear that they've got their own will and you don't really get much of a say on that will. And they start making that clear. And I think that a lot of attachment parents sort of go, oh crap, what do I do? I'll do time out because at least I'm not hitting them. And this book just is like a whole perspective changer. You just begin to see your baby right through to your older child as just being an individual, and you don't have to have these great big kind of weird boundaries where your parenting needs to change. Look, she couldn't come up with a title. I can't even really give a good discussion on it because it's a crazy book. It covers so much. So it looks at risk, and I remember one story that has stuck in my mind from it was this idea that of baby proofing, and that actually if completely left to it, your child is really unlikely to put themselves in a very dangerous situation. And so she tells a little story of watching her baby crawl to the top of the stairs and how aware she was that were she to say, oh, be careful, that might actually send her kid tumbling down. Another thing I love about this book is even though it's a parenting book, And so it could potentially be quite dogmatic, because they do tend to be a little bit like that, don't they, parenting books? She's really against dogma. And so she writes all of this and she pulls brilliant quotes and theories from all over the different places. But she also says, you are the mother and your child is their own person. You're two individuals. You just have to be in relationship and just roll with it. And she says this about her own daughter, who is 4 months old, and she's lying on her back on the floor. She'd never lain like this before. Naively, I asked Peter if he thought lying her down could possibly be doing her any harm, and he said, follow your baby. Ask yourself, is she enjoying it or not? Suddenly, it struck me I had been reading books instead of my baby's face. It's a nice little quote, but I could actually probably quote from every single page. There's lots of questions in here. How much risk? How much discipline? Ooh, that's a tricky one. How much emotion as a parent am I allowed to share with my child? Do I have to keep it all bottled up? But you need to really read the book for these answers. I got mine in the Oxfam bookshop, and you might even get lucky. In Bristol, there's like 1 million Oxfam bookshops, so go there. And the very last chapter is one about getting support as a parent and finding a way to get in a good community where you can all really support each other and almost parent each other, because, you know, we've got a lot of needs too, and it's really hard to be a really involved, really connected parent if you're not getting support. So, another winner. Letting go as children grow. Perhaps collectively we could think of a better title for Deborah Jackson. Tune in next time for a parenting book that's not even about parenting, but is having a massive influence on my life and my parenting right now. Oh my goodness. Okay, see you then.